Like, hey, good evening, good afternoon, good morning. I always say that because I don't know what time you're watching the replay. But welcome to our live with Trey and Jay. As you already know, I'm Trey.
And I'm Jay. Hello.
And listen, shout out to you for pulling up because you already know the vibes. On this channel, we share our lives to empower others to love Jesus, love themselves, and love others well. And tonight, we have a good conversation. First of all, I don't know about y'all, but we've been having some really dope conversations. I hope y'all been tracking along. Binge it if you don't know what we're talking about. Make sure you pull up onto it. But yes, Janelle is about to let us know what we're talking about on tonight. But as I'm saying, make sure you binge it, pull up, okay? All right, let me flip it and reverse it to Janelle.
Yes, Missy Elliott. Okay. So, what we've been talking about this month is based off of the book, Set Boundaries, Find Peace.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
We found this book to be very, very useful, and we all agree that boundaries is important. And so we talked about what boundaries is in the first week. The second week we talked about boundaries with your business with Trisha Bell. Shout out to Trisha Bell. The third week we talked about, actually we talked about we had two lives. We talked about
Mm-hmm.
what boundaries look like in the workplace, and then what boundaries look like in with dating and marriage. And all of that was just, it was great. So like Tracy said, go back and check it out on our YouTube page, this very page that you're on now. But now we are going to talk about boundaries with friends and family, just in time for cousin Ray Ray and Auntie Jackie, who just don't know what to
They
say
just be
to
coming and talking out their
everybody.
neck, y'all.
A
Sometimes
lot
they
of
just really be
people,
talking out their neck,
yeah.
but
And
it's all
so
right.
we had to ask one of our really good friends, KB from Heart Convos, because she's so good at giving advice about how to have great, healthy friendships. And we truly believe friendships, like, well, I was going to say friendship is essential to the soul. And I'm thinking about Q. I don't know if y'all know anything about Q's, which is Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, but they talk about friendship is essential to the soul. And what they mean by that is like, it's important. I mean, it's just important, and that helps you with your relationships with your husband or wife, or your partner, and also with your family in business. I mean, it helps in all different aspects of life. And so we're going to bring KB on. KB, hi
What's up?
Y'all, it's the black fitted for me. That's all I gotta say. It's the black fitted
Black
for me.
Fitted
I'm
for
pulling up and I'm
me.
forcing to say it. Every time you see
Mm.
a black, listen, we in Brooklyn. I'm in Brooklyn. KB's in Chicago, but listen, in
Oh,
Illinois.
I'm
But
in
yeah.
Indiana.
listen, y'all. All I'm
Oh,
saying
so like
is when
Indiana.
she
Oh
pulled
my God.
up with the black fitted, I'm like, no, I must find me a plain black fitted with some black Tims and a denim jacket. I'm outside,
And a
and I'm
denim
and I am
jacket.
and I am going to tag her inspo. That's all I'm
That
saying.
is
That's
that
all I
is
had to
so
say.
funny. That is so funny, man. I'm excited to be here tonight. I love y'all. I miss y'all. It's been way too long since we didn't started
Yeah,
up some trouble. So I look forward to this conversation tonight. I think it's gonna be great.
it
Yeah.
is. And COVID has not, it hasn't helped with that distance, but eventually we will unite.
Oh
We will
yeah, absolutely. Because the last time we connected was right before COVID. It was the
right.
Valentine's Day
It
weekend,
was right
right
before,
before
and we
COVID.
had a time.
We did.
They went out without me because I was
We had a
good and
time. Nah,
pregnant.
it was lit. It was lit vibes. It
It
was
was
lit
amazing.
vibes. It was karaoke with the no, it was the karaoke bus of wine. And KB was like giving them the shoulders.
I
You
remember.
know,
Giving them the
because all I got
shoulders.
is
And I was
shoulders.
like, girl,
All I got
it's
is
oiled the
shoulders.
waist. And she was like, I'm giving the shoulders. I'm
I'm
giving the
giving the
shoulders.
shoulders.
Bring it from the
Listen,
shoulders down to the waist. Like,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
we still working on it.
nah, it was vibes. It was vibes. It was definitely pure vibes. And you're always, I will always take you around Brooklyn anytime.
this time
Okay,
I can
And
anytime.
come.
hey, that's what I'm talking about. Hey, I'm looking for a reason. I'm looking for a reason. So let's make it happen.
So today we're talking about boundaries with friends and family. Whew.
Let's do it.
I think that you are so good at we had to have you because of your platform and what you do. So tell us about your platform and why you decided to start Heart Convos, and then we can
Yeah,
go from there.
man. It's a great question. And yeah, so I'm KB and I'm the founder of Heart Combos. Heart Combos. It's a platform where we champion deep, meaningful connections. And most days I'm talking about deep, meaningful connections in friendships. So people usually ask me, well, how do you do that? And I'm out here just trying to disrupt the status quo. You know, I do these friend tips and this posted stuff online, trying to, you know, create a little bit of a disruption, get people to look up from their slumber, right, and start thinking about relationships and friendships in a different way. And so, you know, it's really my passion to cultivate a people who can communicate and connect at the highest level. And so that's what we're doing with Heart Combos, teaching people how to do that. So that's the platform. That's what I do. And yeah, man, I to this day will die on this hill. If you are not a good friend, you will not be a good boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, co-worker, ministry leader, like it's so influencer. Like if you haven't figured out how to be a good friend, because like what it takes to have a good friendship like is required in all those other connections on some level, it's just hard for me to believe you can truly find success in those other spaces without really learning how to master like friendship. So let's do it. Let's talk.
That's pretty much what I was trying to say before I introduced you, but you just said it way better. You said it more. It was clear, and I love that. I love that because for a long time I didn't realize that, and it wasn't until one of my sorority sisters, who I love dearly, who was like a mentor to me, she was like, you know, in the meantime of you waiting for your husband, like you be a good friend. Not to say that not to say that I wasn't a good friend, but she made me realize how important friendship was and how it wasn't for the motive of becoming married, but she's like, this will help you a lot. And a lot of times we realize, and Trey and I talk about this all the time, we focus so much on, maybe not everyone, but Trey and I fell into this. You know, I can say that because I've heard her say this several times, and I'm not even like, I'm not lying. I'm not putting things out here there for her. We say this all the time. We used to focus more on our relationship with our significant other, our boyfriends, and not focus on friendship. And this is before her and I met. And once we started focusing on friendships, like you said, the other things fell into place. Being a good friend of God, I mean, like that helps everything else fall into place. So,
you know, I just have to pull up with the this is how I heard about KB. So
that's a great
first,
story.
that's the first thing I'm gonna talk about, right?
Okay.
I need y'all to understand, when I like something, I like something. Okay.
Yes. He will tell everybody.
Yeah, if I'm not feeling something, I mute on it.
He's
Okay.
yeah. Which
And
is good.
so I found KB's page. First of all, we met in Chicago at Legacy. But I didn't put two and two together that was her, right? And so I'm like, all right, cool. I saw this page, and this girl said, that's all I'm seeing. I'm just telling y'all how I peeped it. This girl was on the phone. It looked like a video chat, something like that, with this guy. And she was like, you're gonna be a trash friend, a trash partner, if you are a trash friend. And I was like, word. I was like, oh, word.
Look, she printed.
Yeah, right. And I was like, it was so stunning to me to hear that, because I've never heard it said that way. I've heard so many people talk, because I'm coming specifically from the place of, just like what Janelle was saying, what was important to me was my man. So I didn't have, I wasn't, especially women relationship. No, that was never the vibes for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was never down for the female led relationships, for the women led relationships. I just really could care less. The only person I felt I needed to be vulnerable with, to a degree or another, was the person that I was in a relationship with. I didn't know how to do real life friendships, right? I didn't see the value of friendships. And so at this particular moment in my life, when I saw this video, I'm here, like, I'm like, the Lord is like, and cultivate, right? And I'm like, okay, so we getting to know when, like, we really in real relationship with women. Okay. He's like, focus, like, stay right here, cultivate, focus, pay attention, go hams, go in. Like, and I'm like, okay, you know. So when I saw that, I was like, aha, like this is what it is. It like legitimately was to me what I absolutely needed to hear. And from then on, I was telling everybody and their mother about KB. Anybody who could listen to me, I was sharing it every day, all the time. Every other way, I'm like sending it to people, to people's DMs, like, listen to this. Because for me, I realized, wow, your friendship with a person is the foundation for your relationship. But then again, I was also coming from a place at the time, I was also learning for myself my foundation of relationship with myself. You know, the
Being
foundation of
friends with
my
yourself.
friendship with
Right.
me. Like, can you be kind to you? Can you be accountable to you? Can you be um um you know expressive to you? And when I
Mhm.
saw that from you, I was like, no, Shorty just said exactly what I said in a quick old friendship. Like, and I didn't even get it. And all I saw was trash friend, and I was like, nah.
She's right.
Yo, people really be out here trying to be trash, like being trash friends and trying to be like you about to kill it in your relationship. You're really not. You're really
You're
not.
not. Listen, let me tell you something. I was a trash friend for a really long time. When people ask me, well, what is the definition of a trash friend? Well, I mean, there's layers to it, but in short, for me, I just lacked awareness. Like, and people who lack awareness are sometimes can be the most harmful people in a relationship dynamic because you just don't see yourself clearly. And you were talking about your relationship with yourself. What we call that in the Heart Combos community is your primary connection. So you usually ask somebody, well, what's your primary connection? Well, my relationship with God. I'm like, I'm not saying that can't be your primary connection, sure. But what I'm saying is if you don't have a clear understanding of you, if you can't make sense of you, then you can't make sense of your relationship with God. Because we all know that in order for you to even become a Christian, you have to recognize that He is God and you are not, right? That you are a sinner and you
God of
need a
mercy.
savior,
Here she go.
like all
Here she
these
go,
things.
y'all.
So
She's
it's one
already
of
coming,
those.
y'all. Gather yourself. Gather yourself.
Wow. So all I'm saying is I think sometimes in the Christian space, people downplay their relationship like, oh, it's all about God, it's all about God, it's all about God. It's like, yes. But before you come to the cross, you have to know where you stand in light of a holy God. And then after you've
Lit.
been to the cross, right, you need to understand who you are, like, you know what I'm saying? Like because of a holy God. And if you
In
don't
light of holy
if
God. Whew.
if you don't have a clear understanding of that, what will happen is you will think of yourself too highly than you should before you become a Christian, thinking like, oh, I'm good enough, or like I can just do a bunch of stuff to make God happy or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like you'll have a false perception of who you of yourself. But then on the other side, as a Christian, if you don't recognize who you are in light of a holy God, then you will say that you have been set free and still live in
In
bondage for the rest of
bondage.
your
God
life.
of mercy.
And so it is for freedom that we have been set free. And when people can make sense of themselves, they can walk more freely in their identity in Christ. And I think that again, the Christian really struggles with like, like, oh, it's all about Jesus. It's all about Jesus. Yes. And the more aware of you, like the more aware that you are not like Jesus, separate and apart from Him, the more glorious the gospel is. And so, anyway,
Mhm.
yeah, man.
I'm logging off. I
Listen,
don't know about y'all, but I'm done. I'm already wrapped. She
You
already
know
done.
what?
She already done read me.
You know
So
what, KB? I'm so glad you said that because even when you said like your what was the term you said? Your primary
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 connection.
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 Yeah.
You
So your
know,
relationship with you is your primary connection.
right. And even when you first said that, I said, "Oh, it's God." But you were very right because if you are not like, for example, the terms that people say about, what we say in church is that if you don't confess that you're a sinner, you won't know that you need you. So that's pretty much what it is. Like if you're not aware of your own flaws and your own sin, then you won't be aware of the desperate need you have for Jesus. So you are, girl.
And I think that's the big
Yeah.
problem. Like on the front end of the gospel, we're not desperate for a savior because we don't really think we need him. Like we don't see our need. And part of that is because we're lying to ourselves about how good we are, quote unquote, right? We're taking in the cultural habit of filtering everything, polishing everything, cropping everything. You get what I mean? And so then we almost deceive ourselves into being able to see ourselves like the most clear, right? When you look at a person's like mind, will, emotion, their soul, their heart, before they know God, there's so much heartache and turmoil and up and down and inconsistency, and you're just not satisfied. And we talk about all that stuff, right? But then on the other side, again, after you become a believer, if you're not keenly aware of the character, like of who Jesus is, and then also keenly aware where you are, then how do you know like where you are in that sanctification process, and when you're becoming more and more like him, and how you're seeing God? Like, in order to see God in your life every single day, you have to have a sober-minded perspective of who you are. You get what I mean? Like in him. And know exactly what you look like if his grace were to lift an inch, which he's not going to lift his grace, but you know what I'm saying? Like you have this sober-minded, it's that fear and trembling, right? It's like when the Bible talks about like how you serve the Lord in fear and trembling, like what is that? It's like keen awareness that if God is grace, even an inch, I know exactly what I would be. Therefore, because I don't want to be that at all, I am desperately doing every single thing that I can do to please God, you know what I'm saying? Like to walk with him, you know what I'm saying? Because that is the goal. You get what I mean? And so
there's something. I just want to kind of get into the part around knowing yourself, the need for a self-awareness. Something that we said actually this year for our Galentine's Day event, we were talking about how essential it is to be um self-aware, like radically self-aware, like the Lord, like Jesus has called us to be radically self-aware, because there's no, like, what are we doing in this life if we're not understanding ourselves and what we need, what our triggers are, what shapes us, what is molding us, all of those things. And going into specifically the fact that you're talking about boundaries, right? Some of the boundaries that we have along friends and family. Why is it even important to have that sense of self, that awareness of self, in order to be able to articulate some of the boundaries that are necessary around friends and family?
that's a great question.
Mhm.
Two things. One, your boundaries are just that. They are yours, right? They're not anyone else's. And so you're the one that has to establish them. You're the one that has to define them. You have to be able to communicate them in order for them to be your boundaries, right? The other thing is, years and years of attachment research continues to show us that the people who have deep, meaningful connections with other people are the people who have a deep, meaningful connection with themselves. So
Yes.
the more connected you are with you, the more clear you are about what you need, what you value, your goals, you know what I'm saying? Like your convictions, all of the things. And when people aren't sure about that stuff, then they think a boundary is cutting someone off, which a boundary
Mm.
is cutting someone off. I would say it's a harsh boundary. It's what we call a rigid boundary. And I think people will only have one kind of boundary, which is like we either are or we aren't. You know what I'm saying? Like the less they know about themselves. The more you know about yourself, then the more thoughtful you can be about communicating your needs to other people. Also knowing when a line has been crossed. When there's not that self-awareness, it's kind of like my grandmother, she used to, I'd be in the kitchen with her. I don't cook, but my grandmother, would throw it down. And so I would be in the kitchen just watching her. And this woman one day stuck her whole hand in the oven and pulled out a pan without mitts. And I was thinking to myself, what? Right? But she had been like her hands had been burned so many times, right?
Mm.
That she couldn't even like feel, you get what I'm saying? Like the heat to the degree that it was actually hot. Now, I'm not saying that my grandmother could have left her hand in the oven, right? But had she, it might have taken it a little longer than it would for me for her to feel it. So why do I say that? I say that when there are calluses and layers of baggage and junk and issues and unresolved stuff, sometimes it takes a literal gunshot to the heart for us to be like, oh my God, I'm hurt. But the more
Mm.
you know yourself, the more sensitive you are to all the things. You get what I mean? You're like, oh, I don't like that tone. Like when the person talks to me in that tone, like it bothers me for some reason, right? I don't like the facial expression. And it's not about becoming like super picky and all the things, but you just know every little thing. You're like, you can walk into a room and be like, something feels off here. Or the first time that somebody like speaks to you out the side of their neck in a relationship, you don't just gloss over it for the sake of being accepted. Like, up front, like, oh, I already know that these aren't my people because I don't do this. You get what I mean? Like, you just have such a keen awareness of who you are, how you are, and why you are, and you feel the complete freedom to show up like as you are. Does that make sense? So I hope that's helpful.
What I'm hearing, and unpack this alongside me, but what I'm hearing is there's an authenticity that comes in the midst of self-awareness and then boundary setting. There is an authenticity
Absolutely.
that now it's like 1 + 1 equals now the authenticity of self to come out and like exchange and be around others. Is that what you're referring to?
Absolutely.
Now, what does it look like to actually do that?
Yeah,
Because
that was
like
yeah.
the part of it all is like, these sound so good.
But
It
how?
sounds so good. But how? You know what I'm saying? Like, step one, what's 0, 0, zing? What that look like? Like, because I'm trying to cut Tiffany, Amber, and Renee off. I'm trying to cut all three of them off. You know what I'm saying? Like, them three.
And who are these people? Are
don't
they
know the
friends? Are they
people.
family members? Like what?
Like, but I'm
All of
trying
them.
to cut those three people off right now. And because I, the phrase that I think is such a catchphrase, but I think people are using it so incorrectly. But I believe they're toxic. So since they're toxic, they gotta go. What does it look like to now go from self-awareness to then boundary setting to equate to we are now walking in authenticity of how to develop and how to express ourselves in this relationship with these three women who can potentially be our cousins or our aunts or your friends, whatever.
Yeah. Good night, baby.
Good night, mommy.
Okay.
Oh,
Good night. That's the only thing about these lives at this time. They go to sleep at this time. So
Listen,
just
she's like, Mom, she was broke free her day. She's like, I gotta get over it.
She hit him with the matrix. Listen, she hit him
like,
with the
you
ice
can't catch
matrix.
me.
She gave him a stiff arm and was
Right.
like, I'm out.
Yeah, man, great question. So the question is how? Like, where do I start? Again, it starts with knowing you, because no one can set your boundaries for you. So if you at least can come to the place where you're aware that you don't have any boundaries, like, that's a huge first step. Let me tell you, there's a lot of people, like I said, walking around not even aware that you don't have not near boundary in your life, which is the cause of all this frustration that you're experiencing. Right?
Yeah.
Like, you're upset at this person for how they talk at you, and you're upset at this person because they keep you feel like they keep disrespecting your time and they keep all stuff. And it's like, but you've yet to set a boundary. You get what I mean? Like, so if you don't have any boundaries, you
What
have
does
to
that
at least
mean? You have yet to set a boundary. Does that
okay,
mean
so a
you
boundary
have
being
yet
like,
to say something? You have yet to like, what does that unpack that right there?
okay,
please?
okay, so let's talk about setting a boundary. Well, what is a boundary? A boundary is a property line, according to Dr. Henry Cloud, right? He has a book called Boundaries. So if you just like, I just need to know all things about boundaries, just get the book, Boundaries. Okay. He says a boundary is a property line that you draw between you and another person. So it establishes like where you begin, where I end, who is responsible for what. You know what I mean? Like, if you think about the walls in your home, they divide like the section, they divide your home into sections. And there are certain things that you do in certain rooms and certain things you do in other rooms. Right. And so in your relationships, you have these property lines that you draw, right? So that you can know how to appropriately function, right? With whoever it is that you're functioning with. Because you and I both know the way that you function with Amber is not the way that you function with Trey. You know what I'm saying? Like, or Jay, you know what I'm saying? Like, so the way that you function with your friends isn't the way that you function with your mom, who you have a strange relationship with. You get what I'm saying? So the question becomes, you know what I'm saying? Like, where are my property lines? Like, where are the lines that I want to draw? So that's first step. To your point, after you get some boundaries and they're in your pocket, you have them now, right? The question is, when you're in relationships with other people, are you communicating and sharing those boundaries with them? That's usually if a person has boundaries, like, they're like, yeah, I know what all this is and I know what a boundary is and all that kind of stuff, yada, yada. It's like, but I'm still struggling. Okay, well, have you expressed your boundaries?
Right.
How does
You know
what
what I'm
does it
saying?
look like to
Like,
express your boundaries?
to have so that's where Heart Combos comes into play, right?
Mhm.
So Heart Combos, the platform that I have, you know, a heart conversation, it's really an acronym for an honest, elephant-sized, authentic, real, or transparent conversation. HEART. Okay. So you need to have the honest conversation with whoever you're with about what your boundaries are. You just gotta be honest. If you don't cuss and your friends cuss and you get uncomfortable when they cuss, just be honest and say, hey, can y'all, you know what I'm saying? Can y'all like chill out a little bit? You know what I'm saying? Like when y'all are with me, like when we together, like, can y'all not be like dropping the B words like every 2 seconds? You know, because for some communities, that's a term of endearment. All the women talk to each other like that. It's like big, like, you know what I'm saying? And if you're like, yeah, don't call me that, then you have to just be honest about it, right? If you have, if you're not really a touchy-feely kind of person, but you meet somebody who loves to hug and their personal space situation is, you know what I'm saying, like a thing, then you have to address this elephant in the room. And that is, I'm not a hugger. You know what I'm saying? You just have to say the thing.
Can I just
He's gonna want to say, hold on.
Go ahead, Janelle. Go ahead.
What I do?
I was gonna say, she's gonna talk about this, and you were there when we talked about it. I don't mind hugs.
Oh,
but
between the two of
more,
y'all.
she's definitely more of a hands-on person than I am, and I have come a long way because for a long time I'm like, don't even hug me, you know. But I told her, I said the only person I'm cuddling with is Warner. If your name is Warner, now Amani, my daughter. Like
Yeah.
don't want the breast on my back. I don't want any of that. Like we're not spooning. We're just not. And so we talked about that, and she knows. See?
Let me tell you.
But if you don't know, how awkward is that? This is coming from a person who is a toucher. I'm just saying, I feel you. No judgment. Like I'm a toucher. I'm here for a spoon all day.
I'm here for the hug. Listen to me.
I don't mind hugs or like, you know, all that stuff, but the spooning? Oh no.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell y'all something. Janelle is honestly, to me, she was the first person that said to me, I don't do hugs. Like I don't like hugs like that. And I was like, I never heard that. I've never heard that. Right? I never
I
heard
hug
that.
now.
Let alone did I hear that from a woman. Because that I thought that was a woman thing. You know what I'm saying? Like I just didn't know that. And it's so funny because I have to say this. It's so funny because I've had to learn, because being in relationship with her, I've had to learn to give her the opportunity to come hug me. Like, you know what I'm saying? And it's so funny. Can I tell y'all? My fiance doesn't do hugs.
Oh, really? Not even with you?
In mind, a hug is hello, goodbye. There's no like midday. Hey, I just want to.
Hug.
No, he's like, what? You like what? Like, you know, like.
Oh
what?
yeah, I'm a hello goodbye hugger.
He's like, it's a greeting. A hug is a greeting.
Yeah.
It's a greeting and a goodbye. It's not like a. So at noon, and we've been together for 3 hours now. I want a hug. It's like, are you leaving? You're not leaving. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand. And to be honest with y'all, I only got that from Janelle. Like that. The only reason why I can understand that is because she articulated the boundary to me.
Yeah, you have to. It's just like having a real. I teach this thing called real expectations. And this is also an acronym. I do a lot of acronyms. I try to help people remember stuff, right?
Listen,
and if you're
listen, make sure y'all are following KB because I need y'all to get onto Heart Combos. I mean,
listen,
as you already know, we expect that you're following Life with Trey and Jay. That's TRAYANDJEA. But you already know the vibes. Make sure you find yourself on Heart Combos. Go ahead, because it will save you. She be out here, friend tip. Okay, y'all, like, come on, go ahead.
Listen, okay. The way that you can find success in your expectations and your boundaries is by making sure that they are real. They are REAL. They are recognized. You recognize that you have an expectation and you recognize you have a boundary. You express it, right? So you tell the other person so that they have some sort of chance of your expectation and not crossing your boundary, right? But then the A stands for accepted. It has to be accepted. So if you're in a relationship with someone where you have a boundary, you're like, hey, I'm uncomfortable with this. But they continue to cross that boundary. They have not accepted that is true for y'all's relationship dynamic. then it's like, oh, this is where the problem comes in. Do you get what I mean?
Yep.
What people will
Yeah.
think, they'll think that when the person doesn't know their boundary or doesn't know their expectation and they're crossing it or they're not meeting that expectation, like, oh, they're deducing all these things about your character. They think they're calling you a trash friend. They're doing all of this stuff, but it's like, you never said, right? You never did the R and the E.
Yeah.
So if you've done the R and the E and you've done that well, and the other person does not accept it, which again, you can find that out before the end of the conversation. You don't got to just go about life and see if they do it or don't. You can just ask them like, hey, is this cool? Like, I'm not a toucher. Are you okay with that? Like, I'm not a hugger. Is that gonna work for you? You get what I mean? Like, I'm not big on like cussing and would ask you not to cuss when you're at my home or whatever. Like, is that gonna be a problem? You get what I mean? Like, you could just find out before the end of the conversation if we're all on the same page, which leads me to the L, and that is you can then live out the expectation or live out the boundary because it was recognized, expressed, and accepted. You can't get to that live out part if it's not accepted, because
What
that's
happens
what people.
if it's not accepted? What does that look like?
the
to be
relationship
accepted?
It's a free. This is what's so beautiful about it, because people, again, everybody's afraid that if I put my expectation out there and they say that they can't meet that expectation, then I'm gonna die. And it's like, no, you're gonna die trying to fit yourself into a relationship where your expectations are not being met. That's where you're gonna die.
I mean,
You're
because
not-
furthermore, it's a
frustrated.
level of disrespect. You're continuously disrespecting what I have said is a thing for me. Like,
correct.
you don't.
Correct.
I'm receiving this as you don't care.
Right. But when a person is willing to tell you that they cannot do something, guess what that tells me about that person? They also
Yes.
have done their own work to see themselves as clearly as they can, and they know what they're willing to do and not do. So when you have two full-grown adults who are willing to tell one another, hey, this is what I like, what I don't like. This is what I'm willing to do, what I'm not willing to do. And those things don't line up. Then they can, as adults, make a mature decision to either continue knowing that they stand on different sides of the line about different things, and they can figure out how to, deal with that. Or they can say, this is not a good fit, so we're not going to waste one another's time. I'm not going to just let this relationship scratch an itch because I'm lonely. I'm not going to, you know what I'm saying? All the things that people do. You know what I'm saying? Like, all the things that full-grown adults are doing that are making them miserable. And I'm like, you could just be having these conversations up front. And then when you realize, like, oh, you're not aligned with me, either personally, emotionally, physically, whatever it is, right? If we're not aligned, then it doesn't necessarily mean that we can't be anything, but it definitely means that we can't pursue a depth. You get what I'm saying? Like, we could kick, I mean, if you think about some of your boundaries, and right, you might be like, I don't share, like, I have one of my best friends doesn't drink after people. And
I was literally going to say that.
In any situation, she don't drink after people. Okay. Let me just tell you where that's not even relevant. With strangers, it is very unlikely that a perfect stranger is going to roll up on you and be like, hey, can I get some of that? Okay. But somebody that you've been doing life with, right, for a while, it might come up at some point. It was like, oh, you want to taste this? It's like, oh, no, I'm good. You got another cup? Like, no, just taste it. Like, it's like, no, I'm not going to. Right. Like, so at that point, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can establish, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh yeah, I don't do that. And that's not a make or break for our relationship dynamic. Yes. And it's also not a boundary that's even relevant for half the people that I'm even doing life, like majority of the people that I'm doing life with. So I say all that to say, as people are thinking about their boundaries, you have to think, like, is this boundary even relevant for somebody that I'm just trying to get coffee with? Probably not. You know what I mean? Like, is this boundary relevant for somebody that I just know in the context of church, or I only see you every so often? Or is this boundary, like, this boundary would matter more for a deep, intimate relationship? This boundary is not even relevant with somebody who, so again, we just share a mutual friend.
Knowing there's levels to relationship that
absolutely.
You're in.
Which I'm trying not to give y'all the whole course, but y'all already know I got friendship tiers and levels of connection. And honestly, whenever I break down the 5 tiers of levels of connection to people, I tell people the only reason that there are 5 levels is because in every level there's a different set of boundaries and expectations. And if you know for this really shallow level of connection that the boundaries and expectations are this, that's it. It's not complicated. You don't have to make it deeper than what it is, right? But you know that when I'm trying to let somebody into my inner circle, when I'm trying to go deep with somebody, there are way more boundaries and way more expectations. And I think sometimes people are meeting people and putting like best friend expectations on people that they just met. You get what I'm saying? Like, you didn't call me back. I don't know you. You get what I'm saying? Like, we just met. We hung out one time. You get what I'm saying? Like we hung out one time.
I don't know you.
You get what I mean? You're not a priority in my life. You're not, you get what I'm saying? Like you're not in my top 5. I don't even know if that's a thing anymore. But you get what I'm saying? Like I think people are sometimes frustrating themselves when they can't make sense of themselves, 2, make sense of the relationship dynamic and how deep it is. So then it makes it more difficult to know what is an appropriate boundary or an appropriate expectation for this dynamic. My bad. Go ahead, sis.
No.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing that because what you're saying is on point, and I wasn't trying to stop you because that's why we asked you to be here. But like so many things came up. One, something really funny. When Tracy met you in Chicago that same week, that same trip, we went to get smoothies. Trisha was with us. She's on the she's in the chat right now. She's commenting. My girl put her this is funny to me. She put her straw in my smoothie and it was a wrap for my smoothie. So that's how I am. Like I'm like you. Like, I mean, not like you, like your friend. Like I don't like eating with people. But guess what? Me and her could still be friends, like you said, because that's not the thing that would stop us from, like, we can go really deep, because hugging and sharing food is not a boundary that would get in between Tracy and I, or me and whoever. That's one. 2, you said something else. It was so good that I'm like, forget about what I said. It doesn't even matter. What you said is what matters. Okay. But yeah, it's so, the fact that there was a young lady one time for me that she got so mad that I didn't say hi to her at church. And I didn't call her, and we had just met maybe in the last couple of months, and I thought, she's expecting a lot from me. I wonder why she's expecting so much. One, she never told me that. I mean, not that people don't normally do that, but it would have been helpful for her to say, hey, can we go deeper? Like, hey, maybe not those words, but like, I would love to, hang out with you more, be, something that someone always says. I don't know. What would be that? Like
be intentional with our relationship.
Yeah, like I have a friend, Nina. Nina is very intentional. She's like, I want to hang out with you. Trey knows this. Like, and I appreciate that. She's like, hey, I would like to go deeper with our friendship. Cool. I like that. That's clear. But this young lady, she's older than me too. She got so mad at me. I think she cursed me out and I was just like, there's a disconnect here that I've never experienced before. And the boundaries conversation would have helped a lot.
One of the things, okay, so as you already know, we're talking about this is how we got into the conversation.
The conversation.
Find Peace by Nedra Tawwab. So what she says about those types of things is that there are people who presume that depth of relationship is by a consistent opening up, like a vulnerable opening your chest up to the next person. And exactly what you were talking about, which is you have to know how much you are willing to get into with your relationship based on what level you are there with that person. If it's a shallow interaction, you may not necessarily tell them about your deepest hurt. You know what I'm saying? But because you do not know your boundaries, you might very well tell that person your deepest hurt, because in your mind you're expecting that to translate into real life friendship, and that person hasn't accepted your ask of real life friendship, right, like that, in such a way. And I think that many times, one thing that I do, especially when I meet new people and they're like, yo, let's pull up, let's hang out, da 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 da, I'll be real quick with what are your expectations?
Really? Even as friends?
Absolutely. Because any new friends, I have been like, this right here, this crew right here, okay, I got it. I'm like, all right, I'm in the rhythm. But anybody new, I need to know what your expectations are, because I didn't know my expectations the moment that the Lord was like, go in, get in, focus in. I didn't know what my expectations were. So I was learning left, right, and center. Now it's like, okay, let's talk about expectations. What does it look like for a friend to be your friend for you? And that, to me, I remember when we had the conversation, KB, and you were talking about intimacy, and I was saying to you, I was like, yeah, I thought intimacy was something totally different than what I think it is now.
Mhm.
And I remember one of the things that you said was intimacy, and I'll never forget this phrase, but you were like, intimacy is really about going in to like this like abyss with a person. And when you said that to me, I was like, an abyss? Like,
Wow, that sounds super deep.
I was like, an abyss, right? But
Never
then
ending.
after you were explaining it, it was like, yeah, because you never know how deep you can go with somebody.
Mm.
And I was just like, nah, that was good. That was good. You know, certain things when you hear from people, you be like, dang, that was good. That was good. So
That's
that's really what
funny.
it was. So I would really want for you to unpack how intimate boundary setting is, and how intimate it is to like to discuss that with somebody, to go there with somebody and
Yeah.
articulate your needs with somebody, your triggers with somebody, all of that.
Yeah. So, I've said so many things over the years. I'm like, I didn't try to explain everything in so many different ways so that people will get it. You get what I mean? Like, and one of the things that I tell people, when it comes to intimacy, when intimacy does not equal sex, first thing, right? Second thing, intimacy is just when you allow someone to see into you. So you just think about the word into me, see, right? Like, I am allowing you to see into me. That is intimacy, right? Now, vulnerability is when you are sharing something with someone to the point that they could wound you with what they see. I mean, sorry, wound you with what they share. It is not
Mm.
vulnerability if they cannot hurt you with it. Now, because the root word of vulnerability is vulner, and it means to wound, which is why you're vulnerable. They're like, oh, women and children are more vulnerable. They're more easily wounded, right? And so people are throwing around this word, oh, I'm trying to be vulnerable, trying to be vulnerable. Are you? Because vulnerability from like a cognitive space don't make no sense. Like, why would I want to share something with you where you
That you
could
can
wound me with it? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I could be honest with you. I could be even open with you. I could probably even be transparent with you and not feel like the information I gave you, you can like wound me with it, right? But
Mm.
vulnerability, oh, so when you think about, allowing a person to see into you, that's really starting at transparency. You know what I mean? Starting at honesty. I tell people it's like hot V, again, another acronym, HOTV. So hot V, you're being honest, open, transparent, and then vulnerable. That's usually the progression, right? So it's like, just be honest and just start practicing telling the truth. Because half of us are lying most days. Like, your friend could just be like, hey, you trying to
find
go
to
out? You
define.
don't, like, you don't want to go out, but you say, yeah, girl, come on. And I'm like, why'd you say yes? You just told me. I'm on the phone with you. You saying yes to her, but you just told me you was tired and you want to take a nap. Like, why not just say that? Right. So just practice being honest. Then you practice being open. Open is more about giving context to the honesty. Does that make sense? So like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, how you feeling? Man, feel like crap. That is an honest response. It's not vulnerable. It's just honest. You feel like crap,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
An
Mm-hmm.
open response though would be, I feel like crap because
Yeah.
I just got I had a conversation and they came to me and I'm just irritated right now, right? Transparency is when you start letting people see into the things that they wouldn't see. Now, they could probably visibly tell that you were irritated, which is why they asked you how you were doing. But now the transparency is like, yeah, I'm upset because I felt triggered. And why did I
Mm.
feel triggered? Because my dad used to do the same thing whenever he
Mm.
was upset. And he just, you know what I'm saying? Like, so now I'm letting you see into something I have absolutely no context for. And not only that, like if we're talking about, let's say your spouse, it's like when he said that, this is the vulnerable part. When he
Yeah.
said that, it made me want to leave. I thought to myself in the moment, I'm out. Matter of fact, even more vulnerable part is I did leave. And you're the first person that I told that I left for 2 days and didn't even come back. Like that's the
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable part. And that all
Mm-hmm.
started with hey, what's wrong with you? Right. And you said, I
Whew.
feel like crap. Does that make sense? So when you're
Yes.
walking
Mm-hmm.
people,
Mm-hmm.
when you're walking
Mm-hmm.
people through those phases, then it becomes more and more clear what's intimate and what is not. You know what I mean? Again, if a person has not been practicing honesty, it might be extremely hard for them to be honest. And that is to be noted. And maybe that's how they set up their boundaries and all that kind of stuff. But you and I both know what we cared about deeply in relationships 10 years ago, we probably don't care nothing about now.
Girl.
It's like I could tell stuff to a stranger today that I couldn't even tell to my like mentors and disciples like 10 years ago. You know what I mean? I could get on Instagram right now and say stuff that people be like, you say that to the World Wide Web that's gonna be recorded forever. It's like, absolutely. Because at this point in my growth process, those things are extremely vulnerable to me anymore. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like they're just not. Whereas somebody else would be like,
with it.
you can't hurt. Oh my God. Okay. So now you didn't listen. That statement, you can't hurt me with that. The believer understands that not only are we in Christ, but Christ is in us and Christ is in God and we are in Christ. So we like triple covered. You get what I'm saying? It's kind of like putting an envelope that says us on it, right? And then putting that envelope in the Jesus envelope, then putting that in a Jesus envelope, then going back to open our envelope and finding a little note that said Jesus in the envelope, right? You know what I'm saying? Like we sealed out here, you know what I'm saying? And so when you think about that, what can man really do to you according to the scriptures?
Yeah.
Like why be afraid of somebody who can like hurt the body, right? They can cause destruction to like your physical, but they can't do nothing to your eternal situation. So if Jesus understands that I am who I am, I know who I am, how I am, why I am, therefore I can show up as I am unapologetically on the earth for 3.5 years, you know what I'm saying, had this ministry, doing like 33 years, do this work, right? And give my followers the ability to live the same way. But so many of us as believers are like struggling to even be honest about our boundaries, our lines, the things that we're like, I'm not crossing that line. I don't want to do that.
You know, you do know lying is a what's that thing? Is a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
You do know it's a coping mechanism, right? So I do want to.
Most sin is a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Most sin is a coping mechanism.
Yeah. Well, you know, I just want to be cognizant of the fact that many times people are lying,
to cover
not only because they're trying to just hide something, but realistically because it is so normalized in their world that it's like, what is honesty? You have to even consider social media. Like one thing that I was having a conversation with a friend the other day, and I was talking to her, and she asked me, she was like, oh, did such and such, she was asking me if somebody posted something, and I was like, oh girl, I don't know. And I said it just like that. And then I was like, I should probably tell you why I don't know. Like after a while, I was like, I should probably tell you. And then later on that day, her and I were hanging out. And I was like, so I just wanted to circle back on something that you asked me earlier. And she was like, what? And like, cause she, you know, I do this. Like I'll respond and then I'll be like, you know what? And so, I told her, I was like, the reason I have no clue if this was posted is because I muted this person. I don't know. I muted, and I can really like you. Like I can really think you're amazing. I can think all of the things and be like, yo, you're so dope. And every time I see you, I get so excited to see you. But I don't want to watch you on Instagram. I don't want to see anything that you post on Instagram. I just don't. And when she said that, she was like, Trey, yo, you're blowing my mind because I wanted to do that too. And she was like, I wanted to mute people too. And I was like, girl, I mute people I actually like it's nothing wrong with it. It's just I don't want to see you on Insta. And that's a boundary for me because I don't want to see every update that's in your life. That's one. Two, the next update is I do not watch Insta stories. You will never catch me in your Insta stories because I don't watch them. And if you see Life with Trey and Jay, know for a fact that's you know. But I'm just saying, like, I don't watch I'm even Diddy, who I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, like, even a celebrity, I don't watch Insta stories because it's too invasive into your life. I literally be rewatching my Insta stories and be hyped. I'll be like,
and you were there.
You hit that with the right song, and that was the right, you know, like I be hyping it up, watching it myself. but I don't watch other people's Insta stories. And that for me is a boundary. And it doesn't showcase that I like you any less. It's just, it's a boundary for me.
Can I
So
just hop
I
in real
want to
quick?
ask, huh?
Well, just
Yeah.
on that point real quick, I think when you know yourself well enough, you just know what your triggers are. Again, like, this just doesn't make me feel good. And it don't have to be rooted in some deep trauma. It could just be like, I'm so aware of myself that I know like something in me twitched when I saw this on this person's page, and I keep twitching every time. So I'm just gonna not look at this no more. You get what I mean? And
Yeah.
I think when people literally now they'll be like, "Girl, you don't follow nobody." Like, "Oh, you on your Beyonce?" I'm like, I wish I could just say that it's because I'm so dope. I don't need to follow anybody out here. Like that. That is. I really wish that could be it, but that's not it. The reason why I stopped following every single person on social media, like, is because that comparison game was getting real for me, and it was becoming very paralyzing. And I was like, I know some of the most talented people on the planet, and I'm like, and sometimes watching their journeys unfold in a way that mine is not unfolding at either at the same pace or in the same way, me feel my about money, about status, the kind of car I drive, the kind of house I live in, you know what I'm saying? The kind of kid I have, like, you get what I'm saying? Like, and it could be the dumbest of things. And because I am, again, trying to make sure that my affections are set on every single day, a boundary for me is just unfollowing people. Now, for somebody else, they might be like, well, this is why social media is the devil, and I don't do social media at all. I'm like, okay, well, if that's the boundary you got to set, then just don't be on social media. But for me, it's like, no. My work is on social media. There's nothing wrong with social media. But for me, unfollowing people means that if I'm genuinely interested in your life, I'm going to just type you into my search bar and go look at what's going on versus just seeing your stuff pop up in my feed and I didn't ask for this today. Does that make sense? So
Right.
I love it. I love it that you have that self-awareness. I love it.
I'm telling you, KB, when I tell you you hit that nail,
That's so good.
blow right there, you hit it blow. Okay, girl.
That's so
All
good.
right. So basically, I do want to get into what you just said specifically around the comparison trap. I remember the first person that I muted was somebody that I actually like. You know, this is not something that I don't like the person. It literally was because at the time, the reality is everything was looking mad pretty, and I knew what it was. Like, you know, this person was getting married at the time, and then but I knew so much about what was going on in that person's relationship that it was really messing my brain up because it was looking hella pretty on Instagram, yet in real life you it's really a problem. Like there's really things that's really happening, and I'm like, but it looks so pretty. I don't. It's confused. Like it was confusing, like hurtfully confusing. And
Wow.
because of that, I was just like, oh yeah, I. And then when Instagram came up with the mute button, I was like, oh, you have no clue.
What you just did.
I'm out here muting folks, like, but I like
She
you
got
though.
free. She got free, Jay. She got
No,
free.
I like you though, but I'm muting you. Like I don't.
Change the game. Just
Yes,
change the
because
game.
no, but for real, that this is the thing about the boundary specifically. If you know yourself, you know that these are for me at that time specifically when that happened, I was over here like, so Lord, so you just not gonna show me a man. Like, so there's just no man. There's just no man that want the kid. Like, you mean it's a hello. What is going on in the world? Okay. I'm like, sir, Jesus, sir, what's up? Right? And so I could not see all of the things with all of the people and it looking, and it was just way too much. I had to unfollow all the things. I was following ring pages. I ain't talking to not nan one person. I was following ring pages, wedding pages, all the things. And I first of all, I had to unfollow all those people. And then the people who were posting so much about their relationship and then this is then and so on and so forth. I was like, no, I gotta mute you. It's not healthy for me to consistently see this. And that is starting from knowing myself, then setting a boundary so I can authentically walk in this world. Because the thing is, I still like you. It doesn't mean that I don't like you. It just means I don't pay attention to whatever you post on Instagram because I don't see it.
Yeah,
It doesn't
I
come
got
up on
you.
my feed.
That yeah. I listen, I might be unfollowing. Forget the mute, unfollowing a lot of other people. And I love it. And I love it. So I do want to ask this question because it's
Mhm.
funny, but also a reality. You know how we always see on Instagram, if before you stop following people, you know, these memes about inappropriate things that families say to one another at the in around the holiday around
Mhm.
the holidays, you know, whatever it is. So for example, the funny thing is that we always say, Trey brought up this story about somebody asking their daughter or their niece, so are you really gonna wear your hair that at your wedding? And the niece or the daughter was like,
This
so what
was the
did you
joke.
wear
The
at
niece,
your wedding?
so it was a meme
But
that
they
she
never got married.
basically, it was a
Go ahead.
meme. So basically she said her aunt was like, "Oh, are you?" The girl said that she wanted to wear braids for her wedding, and she was like, "Are you really gonna wear braids for your wedding? Like, get out of here. That is not gonna work." And then the girl said, "Oh, so auntie, what did you wear for your wedding?" And everybody is spazzing out on her shorty because they know the aunt has never been married. So what wedding was shorty at? And she's like, "No, but because you're wilding out. Why are you asking this question? If that's what she want to do with her hair for her wedding, that's what she want to do with her hair for her wedding. If that's what you want to do with your hair for the wedding, you do that at your wedding."
So I got a lot of, what's wrong? Why, before I got married, why aren't you married? I don't, you know, what's the problem? Or are you being very picky? Or, you know, like, why don't you have a child yet? Before I, you know, had a child? Or you've gained a lot of weight. Are you pregnant? No, I'm not pregnant. Like all these different interesting things, you know. And I'm not saying that we're gonna respond like this young lady that we talked about, like, but
Oh,
you know,
that response be in my head, ready,
that was
ready to pull
hilarious.
that
And I
trigger.
thought it was good because it wasn't, to me, that wasn't disrespectful. That was just pointing out the reality. But you know, what are your suggestions for boundaries when it comes to family? That's on the surface, but you know, we can start there. Like, what are your suggestions for things like that? Because this is going to happen to someone in like 2 days.
Girl, yeah. I what's funny is a couple years ago I did this thing called Holiday Heart Combos because everybody kept asking me, well,
Yes,
how does this work for family? And how does this work for family? And I'm like, well,
family
it's
is
the
the
same, it's the same thing. You still gotta recognize, express, all kind of stuff. But the
same
reason
thing.
why it feels harder for family is because there's history and there's context. You get what I mean? There's also this respect value. You get what I mean? Respect thing. There's also a culture, depending on what culture you come from.
Mhm.
You'd have saying black culture, African culture, more traditional, more liberal, whatever. And so you almost feel like I can't set a boundary with my mama. I'm like, you as a full grown adult, you absolutely can set a boundary with your mom, right? But if you don't have an adult to an adult relationship with your mom, also still recognizing that you are said, you're her daughter, but you're also a full grown adult who is now married and paying their own bills and all the things, you can then communicate from an adult to an adult. Like, hey, that makes me really uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? Like when you do that, like
Absolutely.
I feel very disrespected when you say that, or it makes me think, or I feel shamed every time I come home and y'all are like, you ain't dating nobody yet. Like, why y'all gotta shame me? You know what I'm saying? Like, what if I don't want to get
Mhm.
married? Or maybe you can even just call it the elephant room. Like, the bigger question really is, why haven't I settled? You know what I'm saying? For any of the men that have been in my life, you
Pop,
go to me or
pop,
whatever.
pop, pop.
Like what do you think? You go to me. And again, I think that, when people are trying to set healthy boundaries, you have to know yourself for who you are, how you are, and why you are. Because if you don't, when somebody presses up against you, you're gonna fold because you don't even know what you're defending. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But if you know
Yes.
what you're defending, then you can flat footed say, I'm absolutely wearing braids in my wedding.
Flat
You get what I'm
foot,
saying? Like
flat
flat footed.
10 toes
You
down.
know? It's like I'm absolutely dating outside of my race. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because it matters more to me that he might love Jesus than he be black. You
Okay,
know what I'm saying?
BK,
Mm-hmm.
BK,
Or, you know what I'm saying? Like,
BK.
I'm absolutely like just stuff
Ay,
that
ay,
people be
ay.
I'm just saying, like, I'm whatever narrative you have written for me, I recognize, and that's also a thing. Narrative is huge. When a person is trying to figure out who they are, how they are, and why they are, you got to dig into your narrative. You got to start asking, like, okay, how did I get here? And who helped me get here? And what did they tell me? And all that. You got to start unpacking that, right? And people do that in therapy and all the things. But you also have to recognize that when you're coming back into a family space, there's an established culture and narrative here. Like there's a cultural value in our home, and that cultural value is essentially the way that y'all do things at your home. So, for example, if your mama says take your shoes off at the door when you walk into her house, that's how she does it in her home. You can say in your house, I don't care nothing about your shit. You can leave your shoes on, it don't matter to me. Like I'm not gonna flip. You know what I'm saying? It's not a sign of disrespect to my home. I don't really care. We have wood floors. You get what I'm saying? Like whatever the reason is, right? But when you go to your mother's house, your mother's boundary is take your shoes off at my door. And you do that because you respect her. So that it's a mutual respect. Like when you go home, you don't have to lose yourself in the culture of your family because they don't own you. However, her carpet is hers and she asked you to take her shoes off. You get what I mean? So when you have to just be able to distinguish that, hey, what you're asking of me right now is not something that belongs to you. You know what I mean? And you only know that when your boundary line is clear because you can say, hey, who I date belongs to me, not you. This is not a family discussion. You know what I'm saying? Like how I wear my hair at my wedding, you know what I'm saying? Like is mine. That's for me to decide. But you can still, again, be respectful. You can still, you know what I'm saying? Like, again, be able to be clear, you know what I'm saying? Without feeling like this is going to tear the family apart. I think what it will do is it will cause a disruption. I told you at the very beginning, what do we do at Heart Convos? We cause disruptions, right? To shake, we're trying to disrupt the status quo all the time, right? And sometimes the status quo, even in your family, is a really unhealthy one. So you come up in there with some boundaries and some health, right? Some actual language to communicate how you feel. And cats start looking at you like, why are you disrupting what's going on here? We've been unhealthy for our whole life. And you come up in here, you know what I'm saying? Like with your health. And you make us all uncomfortable. And that's that's what happens. And you just have to be able to say,
because you're talking about it.
There's that. Because
you're pointing it out and you're talking about it. You see that and you're like, nope, we're gonna talk about that.
And sometimes, can I be honest? Sometimes you don't do anything. It's not even that you're coming in. Like sometimes people are like, you want me to go up in my house and start calling out all the stupid stuff? I'm like, no. Let everybody, if they want to be unhealthy, let them be unhealthy. You showing up with like just with your own health is going to stick out like a sore thumb and start disrupting the status quo because people are going to be laughing about things that you're not laughing about anymore. People are going to start talking about, cousin Pookie and how he just a deadbeat dad and baby mom drama, all this kind of stuff. And you're going to leave the room and they're going to be like, oh, where'd Jay go? You know what I'm saying? Like, and then when somebody is interested enough to inquire, right? Yeah. Like, why are you leaving? You know what I'm saying? Like, then you can be like, oh, I'm not interested in having this conversation, which you are not. Therefore, you moved on. It's not even a thing. Oh, so you think you better than us now and all stuff? No, I'm just, if you think this is best for you, go for it. I'm going to go over here and hang out with the nieces and nephews. I'm going to sit at the kid table for a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like you just say what it is and you keep it moving. But again, most of us in our family context are not functioning as adults. We're entering into our family context, reverting back into a childlike state.
Wow.
You said something that's it's so good. It's so good. I remember two particular times, two different aunts. I had them make mention of why I'm not in a relationship. Like, are you too smart? One of my aunts said, literally looked at me and said, this is the reason why I said you wasn't supposed to go to school, that you did too much schooling, because now when women are too smart, they can't find a man. And I'm like, okay. And I remember the first time she said that to me, I literally, she said that to me in front of everybody, and like and I was like stunned. I literally was stunned because she was talking about everything about me. She went from my clothes, my weight. She was like, what's going on? Maybe you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to, like, giving me all the things of what I need to do. And it was not affirming at all. And I went into the bathroom and I literally cried because I was just like, I didn't know what to say. And I'm Haitian. You just don't talk to an adult. Like, you just don't
look back, or
you just don't. As far as somebody who's older than you, your aunt, like, yes, of course I was an adult, but she was talking to me like I was 8. And even if I was 8, You still don't say that to an 8-year-old. That's a hard no. But culturally, it's super normal. So I remember this was like now maybe 2 years ago. 2 years ago. No, I'm lying. This was last this was last summer. Last summer I go to her house and she's like, bon, chuchu, why why you still single? I don't understand. I don't understand. The moment she said that to me, I had it ready. You know, like when you have it ready.
Cocked.
Yo, y'all, I had it.
You
I
have the
had
gun
it.
cocked.
It was already like, it was already loaded. I was like, I'm gonna come. I'm gonna come and I'm gonna respond. I had it well written, like in calligraphy, y'all. I had it written, okay? And she said that to me, and I was ready to like go. And then I said, you know what? Honestly, the Lord has not given me a person yet, and that's all I can do is wait. And it's not fun waiting. I said, because I would like this to be faster, but it's not, and that's all I can do. I was ready to be like, well, do you got a man? Like, where's your man? Like, have you, like, I was ready for the, and then when I said that to her, she got up and she said, oh, chue chue, and she hugged me. And
Aw.
she said, and she started praying right there. Started
Hmm.
praying for me right there. And she was like, no, we're going to pray about this. She said, this is something for
That's
us
how
to
you
pray about.
do
I
it.
started bawling, y'all. In real life, I started bawling because I was just like, yo, I was about to give you this. I was really about to give you this. And because I was just like, I don't want to meet you there.
Yeah.
I don't want to meet you there. I
Yeah.
really want to give you a refined
Right
response,
there.
and it was like mental gymnastics to give a refined response.
The Holy Spirit was like, don't do it.
No, yeah, because I had it locked and loaded. All right,
And so
and
many
that's
people are going into their family scenarios with that. Like you think about people
yes,
these next couple of days, they're literally getting their ammo ready because they know when they go
yes,
home, they are going to be attacked. So they're like, I need to be ready to attack. And so there's that. And sometimes they go home and there is nothing to attack. And then they attack anyway because they were already ready to attack, right? You know what I mean? They're already on edge. But then other people, I tell them, like, you
yeah,
don't necessarily have to go in doing any, like, you have to know what's best for you. You can go in, not necessarily, I'm not talking about like guns to kill people, but kind of like from the aspect of like, no, I do want to have a response ready because I already know that they're going to ask. So I don't want to be caught off
mm-hmm,
guard. So you can think about things before you go, right? But then you can also go in with your hands up. I tell people all the time, like, if you're in a fight, like people be like, I'm like, you might not swing back, but at least put your hands up. Like at least guard yourself. You get what I'm saying? So don't walk into the trap. You know what I'm saying? Like what you can avoid it. If you are like that's unnecessary. I don't even need to go over there. Like you know what I'm saying? Like I'm just gonna stay over here, then do that. But then on the other side of the thing is it's kind of like you said something from a cultural standpoint. I went to a comic we went to see a comedian on Friday, and the opening act, I mean, he was all right, but one of the things he said right before he got off stage, he was like, you know, this older generation will sometimes talk to the younger generation and be like, you know, there used to be a better day when a man would hold the door for a woman, right? And he was like the times were just so much simpler back then, you know. And he was like, yeah, that man also didn't want that woman to vote. Like you know what I'm saying? Like it's what he said when he before he
That's
went. He was like, all
true.
right, y'all have a good night. And when he said that, it made me think. I literally was like, it took me a
context.
couple of seconds, but I was like, yo, like sometimes the things that people are fighting for because it was the norm for them, or it was how we used to do it, or it's just my value. I'm like, yes, but it was also in exchange for something that was
Mm-hmm,
unhealthy, unhelpful. Like you'd rather me
mm-hmm,
hurry up and get married so then I can hurry up and be divorced. You get what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like because
That.
I didn't do my work on the front end. You get what I mean? Like you'd
mm-hmm,
rather me hurry up and just you know, and like you said, like not go to school, not pursue myself, waiting on somebody to maybe possibly find me, and then not get found, and still not have no options for you know, what I'm saying like for my life. You get what I mean?
mm-hmm.
Like or
Yeah.
whatever it is like the people have together. So it's like I just commend you, man, because again, the decision that you made is that very rare, like you know, A, B, C, D, maybe E. You had like the E response, which is when somebody has proven themselves to take advantage of you in a vulnerable situation and then does it again, you also lean in with like choose vulnerability. And most people
Mhm.
aren't going to choose. It's like, no, I'm going to put my guard up, or I'm going to have something to throw back at them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
literally
Yeah.
say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to expose what's underneath all of this so that she can see exactly what she's speaking to. And she caught it. Now, would everybody know? But in that
Yeah.
situation, she caught it. And if more people were willing to take that risk in their relationship dynamics, do you know how many more, how much more closeness would be cultivated? Because if you think about it, like at that moment, she physically, like everything about how she responded is what happens to people's hearts when they respond with vulnerability. So like literally, she got up from where she was and she came closer to you. And people think that in order to get somebody to come closer to them, they got to do all this vetting and guarding and bounding and all this stuff. And it's like really vulnerability is the only way forward. Even when you think like they could absolutely kill me, but if they don't, though, there's going to be so much more progress if they respond healthily. You get what I mean? And so the risk
Vulnerability is the
vulnerability.
only way forward.
Oh, vulnerability is the only way forward. But nobody believes that. Nobody believes that. They're like, no. Vulnerability is not the way forward if the person's going to take what you said and throw it back at you. Vulnerability is not the way forward if the person's going to, you know what I'm saying, like take it and start talking about you. And I'm like, yeah, but then it goes back to knowing who you are, how you are, and why you are. Because like, what can you really do to me once I know, like, you get what I mean? Again, like I said, there are things that I share now that people be like, I would never. And I'm like, maybe one day. Maybe not now. You're like, oh, it's too sensitive. It's too vulnerable. I need to figure that out. Which, again, a part of you setting healthy boundaries also has to do with you listening to your emotions and paying attention to your feelings. So you might not be at the place where you're emotionally, I won't call it strong because I don't want to imply that there's a weakness, but it's almost kind of like how Paul talks about like preferring the weaker brother. Like the weaker brother is not really like inferior as much as he's saying like, hey, this is a more sensitive issue to him, so yield to him, right? So for you, if you're like, this taps on my emotions in a way that I can't deal with, it's like, cool, fine, do that. But then make it a point to start being able to deal with those emotions. What I think people do is they have emotions and feelings about things and they let that be the bar for how they're going to live their life. They're like, this is a situation, this is a trigger for me, a trauma for me, this hurts me a whole lot. And I'm like, well, we're going to do the work on that part so that you don't have to continue to live your life based on those things. You know what I mean? Like because if you could just start doing your work, then now that's no longer a trigger. And the next time you find yourself in a situation, you can go a little further and a little higher and a little faster. You good? Does that make sense? But if every time you hit this wall, you start throwing up boundaries and disconnecting and withdrawing and all that kind of stuff, and then on the back end, don't even do your work to deal with it, where are you going? Nowhere fast. And so
you turn around.
Can we
relationships?
Can we wrap specifically on what it looks like in boundary setting to be avoidant? I do want to just kind of get on that because I know this week there's going to be mad people who's like, I'm just not going. I'm just not going. I'm just not going. And I understand that I'm just not going. I totally get that. But there are people who really want to go, and because they are entrapped to, in one sense or another, to the triggers, to things that they've experienced with the people around them, and that would be around them there, they just are like, I'm just not gonna go. But that does not actually help. And so I wonder if we can just kind of like tap on that real quick, because many people are about to make that type of decision.
Oh yeah. I get it. Some people are like, I'm not there yet. And again, if you truly know that about yourself, I say kudos to you. You know what I mean? Like it probably on some level is a sacrifice for you not to go home. Like you want to go home. You want to be able to eat good and say hey to your cousins, all that kind of stuff. But you know that somebody's going to be there that violated you when you're young. You like, I can't do it. Like I can't do it. I can't see them. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't want to, I just know that all this work I've been doing is going to unravel. You know what I'm saying? Like if I go, if you can see yourself for who you are, how you are, and why you are as clearly as you possibly can, and know that about yourself for where you are today, then I say, I commend you. And that might be absolutely what's necessary for you right now. I don't think that has to be the lot for the rest of your life. But if that's where you are right now, 2 days before Thanksgiving, then don't go, baby. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if you feel like you needed permission, but if you did, I mean, like, don't go if you know that it's not good. Also, have the heart conversation with yourself and ask yourself, do I just not want to, like, the discomfort? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, not that like I'm literally going to break down, but this is just gonna be awkward, and I don't feel like being awkward. You
Right,
get
you
me?
just don't wanna deal with
Awkward,
it.
awkward is different from this is going to be triggering, and I'm going to go into a panic attack. You get what I'm saying? Like that. That's different.
Yeah.
And so I think when you're talking about, again, this is going to cause a little bit of disruption in my life. This is going to cause some conflict or whatever. Well, it's like, well, here's the thing about conflict. Conflict creates opportunity. Like every single time it does. It's an opportunity for conversation, possibly. It's an opportunity for you to start taking all the things that you've been working on in therapy, all the things that you've been learning on IG, you know, all the things or wherever, you know what I'm saying? Like listening for treasure. It's an opportunity for you to take all this stuff that you have in your mental backpack and like put it into action. Does that make sense? It's an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
It's an opportunity for you to see how much you've grown since the last time you've come home. It's an opportunity to really trust the Lord. You know what I'm saying? Like it's an opportunity to, it's an opportunity. Conflict doesn't have to mean this ain't it. And that's a misconception people have. Like an absence of conflict means we're good. And it's like, no, conflict could absolutely mean like you're growing, you're changing, like this is working. You're in a healthy place now. You're in a healthy place when you can walk into conflict and not unravel. When you can walk into an uncomfortable situation and keep your composure and not fall out of your identity. And you know what I'm saying? All the things like when you get to the place where somebody can start popping off at the mouth at you and you're like, well, look at that, Jesus. I didn't say nothing back to them. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like, oh, okay, you're not looking for those opportunities, but you know, like if I were to fall into this though, I can handle it. Like, you know what I'm saying? The Lord is gracious and I have some tools in my tool belt for how to navigate this. So if a person is at that place, I would say if they know that it's about, again, unraveling work that they've been doing and unsettling to the point where they don't feel like they can't cope with it, or they just don't want to have to cope with it, then that's absolutely their decision. And I would rather them make that conscious decision, having weighed all those things, than just to be like, that's gonna be awkward. I ain't trying to go. You know what I mean? And it's like, all right, what point we got to move past this? Because even if it's not this group of people, it's going to be another group of people that at some point something's going to happen. It's going to get awkward and you're going to start avoiding them too. And that's what I think people don't see. Does that make sense? Like these habits that you have or just avoiding anything that's ever awkward will start to leak out in your friendships, will start to leak out in your dating relationships, not just with your family, but with, again, because they're all connected. Like we said at the beginning.
Absolutely. Listen, avoidance is not the move. It's not the move. I have a family member that says, why talk about the past? The past is in the past. And I'm just like, miss, it is seeping into our present right now. And it's in our future if you don't address this right now, you know? So you are, I love that. You said
next time they say that, conflict is an opportunity. But when they say that, it's like, you can't move past your past until you look at it, If you acting like it's not there and it doesn't exist, you're not actually ever gonna move past it.
It's seeping into everything. But anyway, this has been great. My mama said that to me. Trisha said, my mama said that to me. We have so many great comments, and I mean the list goes on and on. We had so many people here that really, really got a lot from this. So thank you so much, KB, being with us.
Thank you,
and
KB.
for sharing so much of your wisdom and you know all your experiences throughout life, because we know that this comes from experience and a true heart change. And so thank God for you. Thank you for this. We appreciate you.
Thank you for sharing all the wisdom underneath that black fitted.
I appreciate you. You know, I can always get gassed up when I come over here. Y'all make me feel good about
Girl,
myself.
I'm telling you,
We're telling the truth.
Black fitted, okay? I'm going to find it. Watch as I'm saying it. I'm gonna go on IG and you know IG is the new QVC. It's gonna pop up. It's gonna be a black fitted that pops up.
Exactly. No, thank y'all for having me. You know, I could talk about this stuff all day, every day. I do talk about this stuff all day, every day, everywhere. And so, it's a privilege. And y'all know, anytime y'all call, I'm picking up. So, you know, y'all need anything, y'all got my loyalty. And I'm wishing y'all much just blessing and success. And listen, anybody who's like following Trey and Jay and watching, like, they the real deal. You know what I mean? Like, they real deal. This ain't a bunch of talk, because I don't align myself with people who don't walk it. And so I appreciate y'all.
Thank you so much. And the same for you. Y'all
so
better
much.
go follow Heart Convos, okay? Because you're going to get a whole lot out of that.
It's gonna be the friendship
Right.
Oh, which I gotta do a little plug. I gotta do a little bit of a plug. Friendships Volume 1. If you want 100 friendships, you can get the book. The book's got 100 friendships in it. You don't even
Oh, I
gotta wait.
love
You don't even
that.
gotta wait for IG. You can just go get the book. This is a sample. I got a big box for order. But yeah, man, like
Go get
people were
that.
talking about them friendships were hitting, and they were like, "We need more. You don't post every day." I was like, "I don't." So you need to go get the book because they be waiting for that daily friendship, and I'm like, I it just won't happen. So just go ahead and get the book. Shoot,
You have a life. You have a life.
Listen, y'all, thank you, KB. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure y'all are pulling up on Heart Convos, HEART Convos, y'all. Also, make sure you are following us on Instagram at Life with Trey and Jay. That's TRAYANDJEA. And as you already know, on this channel, we share our lives to empower others to love Jesus, love themselves, and love others well. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Like, let us know. Hit us with a DM. Let us know what you feeling, what you not, what's working, what isn't. All the things. We definitely want to be sure that we're curating these conversations with you all in mind, of course. All right, y'all. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever time you're watching this.
Take care.
All right, y'all. It's Trey.
And it's Jay, and that's KB.
KB, y'all. Have a good night.
Take care.